Alrighty guys, welcome back to Tutorial in Lincoln. Today I'm going to be showing you two electronic devices. This is two. The first one is my smartwatch that I've had for, I don't know how long, but quite a while, the Amazfit Bip S. I'm doing a long-term review on that. And then my new phone, the Moto G Power from 2020. So first off, the Amazfit Bip S. So far I love it. It has everything I want, especially only for $80. The only bad thing, the only complaint I have isn't even the watch's fault, it's the touch sensitivity. This case that I have on it messes it up. It's like a rubberized case that goes around it, and it doesn't provide the best touch sensitivity. But other than that, it works great. It's almost always connected to my phone. The couple of times that it isn't, it's just because my phone's in one room and I'm in another, so that's not even really the watch's fault. I mainly got it for notifications. Just whenever I get something on my phone, I'll get notifications and to show time. So it does those two things perfectly, and it even has some extra stuff. You can look at the weather, it gives you your heart rate, steps, how far you've walked, how many calories you burned, stuff like that. So if you're looking for a watch that's cheap but still does quite a bit, I would definitely get this. This has a really good value because you're getting so much for your money. Yeah, sorry about that. My light's kind of freaking out, but okay. And then my new phone, the Moto G Power. I've had it for about a week and I'm loving it. It has a pretty big display, so I like that. It's a 6.4-inch display. It's a 1080p display, so not 4K, but I'm not really looking for a 4K display yet. And my autofocus is, there we go. Okay, so it has 3 cameras on the back, 60 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide with 118 degrees of view, and then a 2 megapixel macro camera that just can focus up really far. It has an LED flash on it, can take panorama, has HDR, and then the front-facing camera is also a 16 megapixel, it has HDR. It can film in 1080p at 30 frames a second or 120 frames a second. This back camera can record in 4K at 30 frames a second, 1080 at 30 or 60, or 1080 at 30 frames a second with the electronic image stabilization. And the slow motion, I believe, is also either 100, you can choose between 120 or you can choose between 120 or 240 frames per second. 120 is 1080, 240 is 720p. And since it's a Motorola, you can do the chop to turn on the flashlight, chop to turn it off, and then do the rotate thing to launch the camera. So I'm loving it so far. It has the normal, and then let's see if I can hear it. Nope. So this is ultra wide. And then it's hard to operate this when you're on the opposite side. And then this is the normal camera. I'm sure I'll throw in some pictures just around over here to show you guys. Like I said, it does record in 4K, so that's really nice. It has 64 gigabytes of storage built in, and I have a 64 gigabyte micro SD card in there. You can go up to 512, but I'm never going to have use for that. So I can download quite a few apps now, and I actually have some room for some files. It was announced February 7th, 2020, and released April 17th, 2020, so actually just later this month, in like 2 weeks. 2 weeks from when I filmed this. It's 6.3 inches by 2.98 inches by 0.38 inches, so it is a pretty thick phone. It's 7.02 ounces, so just under half a pound. It has a glass screen, obviously, with a plastic back and 6,000 aluminum. A 6,000 aluminum frame. It has a nano SIM, and like I said, micro SD card slot for up to 512 gigabytes of external storage. It has a water repellent coating on it, so that's nice. I have an OtterBox case on the back and a screen protector on the front, just for some extra protection. It has an IPS LCD display, 6.4 inches. It has an 83% screen body ratio, so the screen takes up much more of the display than my old one, which is really nice. Like I said, it's a 1080 by 2300 display, so 1080p. Runs on Android 10. It has a Qualcomm SDM 665, Snapdragon 665 octa-core processor for the CPU, and the GPU is an Adreno 610. Like I said, it has a micro SD card slot. It has 64 gigabytes of internal storage and 4 gigabytes of internal RAM, which is an eMMC 5.1 drive. And then, like I said, the main camera, 16 megapixels, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, and then it can record in 4K. And then the front camera, the selfie camera, is 16 megapixels, which has HDR capabilities and records at 1080p. It does have stereo speakers, so it has the earpiece up here, and then down on the bottom it has a speaker along with a USB-C port and a headphone jack, which I love having headphone jacks because I always plug stuff into the headphone jacks, and for some reason it's always the cheap phones that have, it's always the cheaper phones that have enough value to actually put those in there, which to me is crazy, because if you can put in a huge, put in so much stuff in there, just adding a little headphone jack, it's only this big, that's how much space it takes up in the actual phone. But anyways, has Wi-Fi 802.11, AB, G, N, and AC, dual band, 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, has Wi-Fi direct and hotspot capabilities, has Bluetooth 5.0, A2DP LE, I don't know what that is, but that's what it says. It does have GPS with A-GPS, GLONASS, BDS, and Galileo. It does not have NFC. That's the two things that I wish this had was NFC and wireless charging, but I don't really use this anyway, so it's definitely not a deal breaker for me. It has an FM radio, so it works by plugging headphones into the headphone jack and then using those as an antenna. Has USB Type-C 2.0. It has a fingerprint sensor right here, and you can actually swipe down on it to make your notifications pop up, and I've actually tricked my friends by doing that. So kind of fun. You can turn that on and off in settings if you don't want it. It also has an accelerometer, a gyro sensor, and a proximity sensor. It has a 5,000 milliamp LiPo battery, non-removable obviously. It charges at 10 watts, charges really fast too. So it has a 3-day battery life, and I don't remember how long it takes to charge, but it charges super fast. I got the black version, so just the back underneath the case is all black. And I got all this from gsmarena.com. It's a really good phone if you're looking for it. As you can probably tell, I go with all the cheap stuff. I have a cheap phone. When we got it, it cost $250. It's now down to $180 just in the past week, which is kind of crazy. But I have a cheap watch that does quite a bit, and I have a cheap phone that does quite a bit. So anyway, for me, it's like people buy all these expensive phones that do almost the exact same things as these cheap phones. But, I mean, yes, obviously you're going to get some extra stuff. But for me, as a 14-year-old, I'm, like, I don't need all that stuff. And for me, it's just, like, it may even be a drawback that it costs so much, because if I break it, then there goes all that money. So for $250, you get a really good phone. If it breaks, it's cheap to fix because it's Motorola. All the parts are cheap and easy to fix. It's fast repair for young player. So if you like this video, thumbs up. Subscribe right here.